Good afternoon, everybody. As I was so skillfully introduced, my name's Shelley. I work for an organisation called MacIntyre. We're a national charity, and we support people with learning disabilities. That includes children and adults in their own homes or out in the community. And we are very aware that at the moment there's a lot of commercial pressure on all organisations, and that's certainly true of the health and social care sector as well, to do more for less. I'm sure that's a phrase that we've all kind of like heard often lately. And so we've been looking at ways that we could get resources out to our staff, provide learning development materials that would help release staff from that travelling around, attending courses, but also allowed us to provide some of the material from our subject matter experts and make it a bit more accessible. And I must say that I've been around today and looking at people coming in and out and seeing the energy and the enthusiasm from you guys, which is wonderful, because normally if I get invited out for a meal or go somewhere, I sit down next to someone who might say, so what do you do? And I'll say, I work in workforce development. Okay, and what do you do? I develop e-learning. And you can see that glazed look in their eyes and you think, well, one night out this month, and here I am, sat next to the e-learning developer. So it's been wonderful to spend some time talking to people who, that's your bag too, this is what we're involved in, and to see people with a passion. I think that's certainly come across as I've been chatting to people today. It's been wonderful to see. So what I wanted to talk about was to take you through a quick journey of how we've gone about providing content, trying to harness our subject matter experts and develop more control. So we started with a number of LMSs. We wanted to provide this learning, but we didn't have the expertise. So we looked to external providers to provide an LMS. We went bespoke. We needed them to develop our content too. And this was incredibly expensive, but we thought it was great and we were going to be cutting edge, and it was. But suddenly we realised that to just have 3 or 4 courses was a huge resource commitment for us. And in our sector, people keep changing the names of things, or a new strategy comes out or a new policy. And we were going, can we change this? And these people would be saying, of course we can, ka-ching. And we just realised this is not sustainable, almost to the point that we thought we can't do this. We're a charity. Every bit of money that's left over is surplus and goes back into providing support to people with learning disabilities. So we started to think about how can we do this? Can we get more control? So we researched, and I found a company through Learning Technologies, one of the guys downstairs, and I looked for an LMS that could provide me with greater flexibility. Instead of having to go to them to say, could you build this for me? Could you style it like this? I wanted to lead on that. I wanted us to have some ownership and create it our way so that our staff felt that it was theirs. And we've started to call it My MacIntyre, because we wanted staff to arrive there and be welcomed. We could also change it, so we call them the portal pages, but for each division or section of MacIntyre, we could have a different homepage. So design was important to us. We wanted it to be friendly and approachable and open. There's no flash movement on there, it's still. Our staff demographic is changing, but predominantly it's people that grew up before we had computers in schools, who weren't taught how to use those. For some of our staff, they might have got their hands on a BBC computer, or a Spectrum 128 or a Commodore or something, but they were really slow. So we needed something that was almost like, you use a cache point, don't you? Or you use your Sky remote control to go up and down. So we wanted something that felt kind of similar and friendly. So we went for a very kind of handwritten, almost drawn way of styling things. So people didn't feel threatened and they felt comfortable. And they could just click on things and it would open up for them. So that ticked our box. So our LMS provider was able to say, okay, that's fine, we'll sit with you. And so we paid a consultancy day for someone to come out, spent some time with us to say, this is how you can build your portal pages. But we own that now. We own that skill, and so we have so many different portal pages now that we can use and adapt and use in different ways, because in effect it's a web page, so we can hide all sorts of things on that and pull it in when it's necessary. And we've put a range of resources on there for our staff as well. So we've worked in partnership with Ashridge Business School. They have virtual Ashridge. Are people familiar with virtual Ashridge? Yeah, okay. Cracking resources, really good. What we did was try to then style it in a way that linked into my MacIntyre. So although they were going off somewhere different, it felt comfortable too. We linked that into our competencies for all staff, so that when they clicked on those areas of resources, it would link into their MacIntyre responsibilities for their particular job role. And that was a bit of a shift too, because we went from focus on e-learning courses that for something for you to complete and be tracked for compliance, to actually saying, you know, this is about resources, this is for you to use, this is for you to personally develop as well as professionally develop. And that was a bit of a shift for us. And we were able to start to do that because we were taking that increase in control. So we went to them and said, we know exactly what we want that to be provided, and we want to host it through a link, almost using our LMS as a series of portals. We don't have an intranet, so for us we need to get the biggest bang for our buck from spending that money. So from a learning management system, it became my MacIntyre that could host a whole range of resources for people. So we placed that on there. We also needed to get information more widely available to our staff. Not everybody in MacIntyre is able to have an email address. If you're a manager or if you're a supervisor, we can give you an email address, but the vast majority of our staff don't. So a lot of our materials hosted on public folders on an Outlook system. They couldn't get to it. And so you produce all your policies, you produce all these things, but there was that bottleneck that couldn't get out to people. So within our LMS framework, we were able to have folders that we can populate with organisational policies and documents that enable people to be able to log directly into and get that material when they needed it. And that ticks quite a lot of compliance boxes too, because if you happen to be the person at the service when the inspector calls and they're saying, can you show me a policy, can you show me a document, our guys, their minds go blank and it's quite stressful. So to be able to say to them, go to here, click on this, and there you'll find them. That's where you're going to find our policies. It's really resourceful for our staff. We've also started to create documents. We call them interactive documents. So in this one, we're looking at MacIntyre's core signing vocabulary. So what we did was took a load of photographs of some of the people we support or staff, and they were using a signing system called Macaton. We took photographs and removed the backgrounds, really simply done. But we built that in PowerPoint. So we built the framework, styled it all in PowerPoint, put the hyperlinks in, produced it as a PDF document, and now that goes across all platforms. Most smartphones, laptops, tablets can handle PDFs. But it operates like an app because we've put the navigation in. So as you can see there, you have your opening page. You could click on those common signs and it would open you up into that chap who's signing now. This was amazing for us because we realised we didn't have to even use our e-learning software. We already had existing technology. Probably most of you have got PowerPoint in your systems, but maybe don't use it this way. It was you know, a really eureka moment of saying we've got so much content now that we can push out this way, existing content from our subject matter experts, documents and resources that we've had for a long time that suddenly may have been sat on shelves, forgotten about, we can pull out again, and suddenly we're able to produce massive amounts of content to people that we're not pushing too much at them because they're just-in-time resources. It's a case of we'll make it, and when you're ready, you can go and find it, make use of it. But the idea is you can download it to your phone and use it when the time's right for you. So they could be management guidance resources, they could be something that you're concerned about, click on this. If it's safeguarding or anything else, you can click on that, it can give you guidance and support. Even if it's a smartphone, you can click in phone numbers, etc., and support that person during very difficult times. And so it's incredibly cheap because we already own the software. So that's been a really useful thing for us. We also bought some rapid authorware. We used Articulate. Other e-learning resources are available. very similar to the Adobe products, which is it's a PowerPoint bolt-on. So if you're familiar with PowerPoint, you can use some of those skills to start to design your slides, think more creatively, but it will output to Flash and to SCORM, so you can track it and run it on your LMSs. How we use this, though, is actually say, instead of building e-learning to track it, again, what we did was video some of our guys demonstrating those signs. We had audio as well, and use a glossary to actually show those signs being demonstrated. But instead of putting it in a normal e-learning area, we put the link on the LMS so someone could click on it and just use it as a glossary. So if someone wanted to know a sign for something, or if they were supporting someone, again, they could log on straight away, and they would have that piece of video and the audio demonstrating how to use that sign. And our staff like that because they're seeing their friends, they're seeing their colleagues, people they support demonstrating it, but also it supports them in their role, in their job. In terms of branding, how many of you have come across problems when you've tried to make something and your marketing department starts to go, ooh, branding? Has anyone encountered? Yeah. Yeah, so we're quite lucky. I think it's worth investing in your relationships with your IT manager and also marketing as much as possible to say, right, okay, we need to be clear here about what's for an external market and how much is for in our internal business. And for our internal business, we need to be able to take that sense of it's corporate, it's MacIntyre, but actually we're talking, it's almost like water cooler moments. It's about we need to be a bit more friendly and a bit more interactive. So we've taken some of those colours and styling and started to link it through. So this is off one of our Facebook pages and links that marketing do. So hopefully, as I go through some of these slides, you'll start to see they're different but similar. And so for us, that was one of the big issues, because you can put your budgets together, buy this nice bits of software, and that's great. But sooner or later, you're sat there going, right, turn it on, put my serial numbers in, and you've got that white screen in front of you. And you're thinking, crikey, it's my responsibility to actually start churning some material out now. How am I going to do that? So that's where things like Norman was talking to you about, the action mapping, really useful tool. There's lots of places now online that you can start to explore, and there's hints and tips about creating your own content. And that's what we had to do. We had to design a style, even going back to what fonts are we going to use, what colours are we going to use, where are we going to place things on the screen. All has to be worked through. And at the start, there was myself, and I seconded a senior administrator to work with me. We've now got a third member of staff, but it's still just the three of us. So we had to find a language and a way of exploring. So if I say this is going to be an interactive policy document using our e-learning software, we've got a language that they know already. I know what Shelley wants here. And they can start putting stuff together. So when our staff go in there, there's a consistent style and look, and it means that we can build things very quickly. So for things like policies, that's already been ratified, it's there, we're not going to change all the words, but for our staff, it's meant the difference of signing or initialing a policy in a service somewhere to evidence that they've thoroughly read and understood something, to us actually being able to track the fact that that person has interacted with that, read the policy, maybe asked a few questions to check their own understanding of it, and then we've tracked that Sheldon Carolan knows all about safeguarding, which we never had before. So again, for compliance, we're able to demonstrate that our staff have a familiarity with those policy documents. That's a link into our website. So again, we've put that on our portal page. But hopefully, you'll see that there's lots of themes here, lots of pictures of people, because that's what we do. We work with people. But the colour themes work through as well. Also, it's looking at the fonts and pulling through some of those standardised fonts like Arial, etc., and using that. But then also when we do our e-learning, looking for things that might soften it a little bit. So we use things like Bookman to work with the Arial as well, or Caliban, that gives us some of that handwritten look as well, which just starts to soften it. But by consistently using that, it means that our branding stays a bit more consistent. Marketing leave us alone a little bit more, because they realise the things that we're producing are okay. We've got links into Twitter that are on there as well, so our staff who are running Twitter accounts, our staff who choose not to personally have social media on their phones, or they're worried about their own Facebook information linking in with their work ones, by running it off the portal page, we're able to, they can just view it, they can see the Twitter stream or the Facebook page rather than actually having to log on to those systems themselves. This is an interactive notice board we've built using one of the portal pages within our LMS. So I previously built something like this on a free-to-use website builder, but I quickly learned that they can change the terms and conditions quite quickly. And so I experimented with building a portal page that did the same job, and it's worked. So now we can host our own stuff totally within the learning management system. This works by just placing those graphics on there, coming up with a consistent design style, having the content behind it so those links open up and can take staff to a whole range of resources, contacts, blogs, etc. So that's just drilling down into that. But you can see we like a very clean, easy style for our staff. We've used some of our software now to start to think about going mobile. So this stays with the resource idea. So this is something that we've published, and we use Storyline, and Storyline enables you to output in HTML5, Flash, but also iOS. By using an app, what we're able to do is that user would go online to that URL we've given them, and then they can download it onto their iPad. So after that, they can open up that information offline. So that is literally, that's a resource. And for our staff, that's exploring some of the issues for staff working with people with dementia. So that's a memory box. So that's exploring the whole idea that people can keep things to help them remember, help staff remember who they were. We all know that sight and smell are all very important senses, and they can help people associate with the life for a little bit longer. So what that actually does is explain some of those processes for our staff. So again, we wouldn't track that. That's just putting a resource out there that they can use and drop into. I'm trying to see whether I've broken that down. Yes. So what someone would do is, that is a little cartoon character that's a little bit animated. She moves. We've got someone in the office we grabbed, put a microphone in front of them and said, read this script. They did. They would click on a box. We got their real boxes from people we support. We brought them in, got a piece of green material that I got from a shop, and it enabled me to remove the background a lot easier. So we did that, and then we could show people talking a little bit about why their box was important, and then show the stages of it opening up, and staff could see what was in there. And then we carried that through to a fake one that we made up, which had a greater range of content and material in there. So when people would click on that, it could talk about smells and senses and touch and taste as well. We've now published for the iPhone, or in HTML, so I've not tried it on anything else yet. I've just tried it on my iPhone. It seems to run very well. I can't get it to cache or stay on it yet, so people would only access it by going online. But again, published exactly the same way. But I made that in 15 minutes because we already had the narration from something else we'd made. I had the artwork from another course that I've made. So I was able to just drop it in there. All I had to think about was resizing it for a different screen, and that's very easy. You just put that into your design box. Post it on our LMS, got a URL for it, clicked on it, and at first I thought it's not worked, but then I realized all I had to do was allow the cookies, and suddenly it opened up. And so that runs. So I'm still very chuffed about that at the moment, because Little Old Us, as a charity, have managed to get interactive documents by using PDFs on tablets, on phones, smartphones, download it to phones, but also now we're able to put it so it'll run offline on an iPad, but also, as you can see, we're able to run audio. Not tried video on it yet, but audio and interactivity that will run on iPhones, or I haven't tried other phones, but it's HTML5, so it should be okay. As another example of one of the interactive documents, they look great on tablets. They work really well, staff enjoy them. You just stylize the artwork so that people can, it looks like an app, but basically all it is layers and hyperlinks within that PowerPoint document. But you can send that by email, you can put URL links to it, and people can download it and keep it on their phone or tablet device and use it whenever they want. They're just further examples. I've put those up there just so, again, does it look as if it's our stuff? Can you see a definite kind of look about these things? And so that really helps us, because it means we can make things very quickly now, because we know the fonts we're going to use already and colours. That is something different. That's another portal page now, but instead of going behind it into e-learning, etc., you just stay on that page, and that's just chocker full of resources. So on the right-hand side, there's links to our MD's Twitter account, our Facebook account. It's a bit of a community section, and over here there's a whole range of documents and resources. You can see some there that we've stylised. So again, we're taking the branding colours, we're putting all the resources in there, and people can track backwards and forwards and just open it up on their devices. Same with the courses. I'm just conscious of time. How am I doing? 3 minutes, okay. So they are produced in different pieces of software, but for our users, they can see that it's an interactive policy, but it looks very similar to our e-learning module, so that they're definitely related. Same thing there, that's built in a different piece of software, but the same thing there, interactive policy links into some of the e-learning, so there's a theme and staff know where they're going. This is making it a bit more interactive. Some of the themes that Norman was talking about earlier come through here, hopefully. We know that our staff generally tend to be a bit more introverted than the general population, which is great because we want them to listen to the people they're supporting, be gentle. But they've got incredibly strong values. So I knew if I'm doing something around safeguarding, if I can provoke them, then they're going to start to engage with this. So I wanted a bit of a story. So we created this character, Mary. It was introduced by this little cartoon character. They could click on that, and it took them through. But the artwork was very simple for this. That park in the back was from Microsoft Clipart Online. Download it as a vector, ungroup it. You can take out all the slides and swings, because you just click on them, delete them, and you're left with a nice graphic. So if you do that, suddenly you've got all this wonderful free artwork that you can play around with. We then mixed it with photographs, which we bought those from Photo Symbols, but we've done the same thing with our own staff. We can take photographs, remove the backgrounds. Although they look quite clear there is a little slight effect. I've put them through PowerPoint again and you can make it look like a little bit like a painting. I don't know if any of you use it, or a crayon effect, slight effect, just to pull the two different medias together, because at first I was concerned, how's that going to work, photograph against cartoon? But I actually quite like the effect. And again, it becomes another little thing that we use now quite often. So this moves through. This poor Mary, she's going for a walk in the park, and these rotters start being mean and kind of like horrible to her. So our staff, again, loved doing the voiceovers for this. We got them to take on the characters, grab them, and they took on the roles for these individual characters. So for those people that were involved in this, they can't wait to do the course because they know they're involved, but they're also telling their colleagues, so their own little bit of a marketing team for us as well. So that provokes a response. It helps people engage or associate with this content a bit more because they get passionate. This is about protecting people. That's not fair. That's not nice what happened to Mary in the park. So what can you do? So again, what we did then was take that back to some of the theory and practice we'd already discussed. We had this other character then as a support worker talk through about how he supported Mary through this situation using some of the tools that we've already explored. And our staff tend to like that. And then back to paper for offline use. So a lot of our courses you're able to print out to Word, and hey-ho, you've got a document as well, which again looks similar but different. So that's me done. Sorry if I went over a little bit. There you go. Thank you very much.
Well, fascinating. Any questions or comments that you'd like to make? At the front here, thanks. Here's a microphone for you.
A very quick question for you, Sheldon. How long did it take you to develop all that?
Well, I encourage my team to play. So we're always building things. And most Fridays I'll be kind of like, sending daft things to them or building things, and I'll send it back. And what we've found is time and time again, we've used what we've made and played with. It'll come back out in another course. So it's getting faster. Each time we need to produce something now, we can be very quick. As I said, that iPhone app, it took us 15 minutes because we're using resources that we already had. So in terms of using to produce our interactive policies, which are more of your traditional, here's some text, we've tried to make it more interesting with bits of video or pictures, and it ends in a quiz. We want staff to be able to do it quickly. That was our first type of e-learning that we produced because I knew I couldn't play around with the content too much. That was sacrosanct. Once we got that style, we've changed it very little since then. So the time went into coming up with the concept. Once we got that, we were off. So that was very quick. So if you're used to building things in PowerPoint and trying to make your PowerPoints more engaging, then I think it's a great learning tool to actually say, you know what, it's only layers, you're only dealing with shapes, you're only putting effects on it, and you're only creating something that looks fun and nice. So very quickly, I think we produced what I would call usable content.
Thanks, Shelley. It was remiss of me as chair not to point out that we've reached that witching hour where people need to rush off for trains and things and planes. So don't take it as a personal comment that so many people have left the room. If you do need to leave for that purpose, perhaps you do it now all in one go. But don't mean everybody go, and then we won't feel embarrassed by your departure. There's a question at the front here, though. We've good 10 minutes of questions, and I think we've got quite a few questions to it.
Really follows on. Sorry, it really follows on from the previous lady. The feeling I got from your presentation, Shelley, was that you were very confident about these tools. So your knowledge of the IT, I mean, PowerPoint, of course, I've used, but to go into it and to feel that you could do HTML and all the rest of it. Are you basically an IT person or not? So
No.
how long did that take to sort of?
I was first probably trained as probably around the same time. I've always done L&D than operational, so working with people and moved backwards and forwards. So that when I was trained as a trainer, flip chart was my tool. Using coloured pens on acetate was cool and really, kind of out there, cutting edge. I avoided PowerPoint for years like the plague, and in fact, when I had to use it, I got anyone else to do it. I was very good at move it slightly to the left. But I needed other people to do it. So it was literally just because my role had changed and I was working for a charity, it was saying, we can't continue like this. We've got to explore it. And I had to start to learn those tools. So I apologise if I'm just saying words now like HTML5 and SCORM and stuff, because I'm not IT, I'm not techie, and neither are the two people that now work with me. Martin is operationally based, so he's been supporting people. Linda is a senior administrator. None of us have got a technical background, but we're able to produce stuff for the iPhone, for iPads, manage our learning management system. And I'm not kidding, if we can do it, you can. You really can. It's about just being enthusiastic and looking to solve a problem. What do you want it to do? How can you make it happen? So crack on.
It seems to me, Shelley, as if you sell yourself a bit short there, because I think that there is a very clear level of comfort with graphical design and layout, and I think that particularly shows in the ways in which you've used PowerPoint. And even though you might have used techniques for dismantling vector-to-vector images and so on, you still need to have a good vision of what an effective screen, ergonomically manageable, looks like. Is that so?
Well, a very long time ago, I used to work for a newspaper. So in those days, no computers. I drew the newspaper. So I had to decide where the editorial goes, etc. So I think some of that went in. I love reading, I love books and magazines. So what we also do in the team is, National Trust magazine comes out, I grab it and go, oh, I like that. So suddenly, you saw everywhere, didn't you? You kind of like the little note paper with a paper clip on and going, we can do that. So we've got paper clips and note paper and stuff, so we can make that into our designs. So everywhere I go now, and the team's the same, we watch TV and we look at it and go, oh my goodness, it's like seeing the Matrix all of a sudden. You go, it's just layers and shapes and how are people positioning it on the screen and move it until it feels right. And that's what we do.
Is that caught or taught, or is that innate?
For me, it was more natural, and I was trying to find a language to share with my colleagues. One thing that I did find was a book by Robin Williams, Graphic Design for the Non-Designer. It's fab. And particularly it helped me find a language to describe why, for me, moving the shape to there was right. So it has very simple concepts about where you position things, about alignment, about repetition, and it's done in a very easy to explain way. As I said, it's for non-designers. It's really great.
Norman, when you talk to people about scenarios within the bank, do you think that they are thinking of something that's fundamentally graphical?
I think I realised that they meant a lot of different things and still do. I've seen something that just came back from a supplier where they'd agreed that this was going to be scenario based. What we got was what I would call it a walkthrough. In other words, they'd taken a realistic situation and explained stage by stage what you would do. There wasn't anything for the learner to actually decide about or do. So I would call that a walkthrough. They called it a scenario. It depended on what we got. We got one thing that was real. I should never have seen the light of day, but it came in. It went out on an action map as scenario to, in a conversation, spot the triggers for such and such or other activity that you might do, and it came back as the following are triggers. Tick the one that is not a trigger. I might get lost. So I think it's the person in charge now really has to define or agree with the supplier company what exactly you mean by a scenario or a walkthrough. Prefer to call it decision-based questioning, if you like, or something like that.
Can I ask you to raise a hand if you've not got a question then? Are there any questions from the floor? Let's to the back there, please.
This is a question on the comments. Having worked with some of the old actions through Sorry, having been on the supplier side of your action maps.
Oh, you're one of the suppliers.
Yeah, I think they're great, and they helped out a lot. They're a very good idea, especially when you got a large amount of content. They act as a kind of a sieve or a knife to cut through that content and get right to the point. I was one of the ones who used them and not put them in the drawer, by the way.
One last question or comment from the floor anywhere? Okay, well, can I thank you all for taking part in this session, and particularly, of course, thank our two speakers, Norman and Shelley. And before you depart, let me tell you that although that's the last formal session of the day, and indeed of the conference, it's not all over yet, because if you have the time and the thirst, there is the conference closing drinks reception, which happens out there, and yet another chance to network amongst colleagues and peers. And may I say how much I've enjoyed having you here today, and look forward to seeing you all again. And thank you one last time for Norman Lamont and Sheldon Carolan.